Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Healing Her Hustle. It means the world to me that you're here, and I can't wait to keep showing up for you every week. If today's conversation resides with you, I'd love for you to subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or my YouTube channel so you never miss an episode again. If you want to help spread the word, take a screenshot of this episode and share it on your Instagram or any of your other social media platforms. Tag me at Healing Her Hustle so I can celebrate you and share it with our community. Today's episode is about the three M's. If you do not know what the three M's are, I'm here to tell you about them. Understanding the three M's, which is mental breakdown, mental illness, and mental health. Welcome back to Healing Her Hustle, the podcast where we explore the balance between building your dreams and taking care of yourself in the process. I'm your host, Dawn Marie, and today we're diving into a topic that affects so many of us, but isn't always talked about openly or honestly. The three M's, mental breakdown, mental illness, and mental health, are three different ways that we can express mental illness or mental health situations, including how you become in the mental breakdown, how you receive a diagnosis of mental illness, and the environment that you go to get your mental health checked. Let's break down these two together with compassion, honesty, and a few strengths to help you if you're navigating this space right now. Let's start with the mental breakdown. A mental breakdown, also known as a nervous breakdown, isn't a significant medical diagnosis, but it's something many of us recognize. It's the point where stress, trauma, or overwhelm become too heavy to carry, and suddenly you're unable to function in your daily life. Maybe you feel drained, almost destroyed. Maybe you're angry for reasons you can't explain, or maybe you find yourself numbing the pain with drinking, partying, drugs, or unhealthy behavior because the chronic feelings are unbearable. A mental breakdown is that crash landing, your mind and body telling you enough. Something has to change. I personally went through a very, very traumatic mental breakdown, and I didn't even know that I was in it till I was my seventh attempt into trying to take my own life. And with that, I apologize for my nose. It is that part of the season. And I was so numb into what was happening to me that I didn't even realize that I actually had a mental illness, and it had showed itself from the age of 5. I was 5 when I started getting very violently angry towards other kids that I was supposed to be in the environment of playing with them, but they would like make me feel like I couldn't be a part of it. Like they would close the door and say, I was the only one that was not invited into the room, that I only want to play with so and so. I don't want to play with Dawn Marie. I just want to play with myself and the other people. So then I would get angry and I would physically hurt these people because it was the only thing that I knew how to express was to be violent towards them, because my environment was when somebody was trying to express their feelings towards someone else, then violent behavior would erupt, and then somebody was getting beaten up. So that's where my mental breakdown started at 5 years old. So you can start seeing signs. What I've learned over educating myself over mental illness is that you can find it in your 3-year-old. So if you have a child and you get to terrible twos and they're not going through those terrible twos that you see other people's kids going through. And you get to terrible threes, and it's like a whirlwind tornado has hit your environment, and your child is not. The reason why they're like that is because they're not able to express their trauma reaction to the way that they were treated. So they can't express properly because either the environment being provided is nobody is properly expressing their feelings, or it is the proper environment, but they don't know how to express feelings. And then from that, because I was 5 when I now know, I was already expressing that I had bipolar disorder, that in when I got pregnant at 16, I was already being manipulated, and I was just numbing myself to everything that was happening to me and around me, that when somebody was trying to express something to me, I would just shut down. I would just create silence in the environment and then try really hard to find a way to remove myself from that situation. And I would go into the washroom and I would cry for 15 minutes to an hour, and then come back out and my eyes would be red and they'd be like, "Were you crying?" And it wasn't like it was consoling. It was more like, "Why are you crying?" Instead of, "Are you okay? Are you going to be okay?" Instead, I got, "Why are you crying? Why are you doing that? You're ruining the feeling that's going on right now, which is supposed to be good." But then I would just shut off, and then I would find a way. I would go hang out with the kids instead of trying to be an adult and hang out with the adults, because the adults were not being caring or seeing my feelings for what they are, because I had to be in an environment with, first of all, my attempted serial killer, like my killer, who was my sibling. And then it was like I was the brunt of everybody's joke. And I just grew up that way. And then when I moved out when I was pregnant, well, I was practically kicked out at 16, moved upstairs from where my parents were, had no idea of how to live life as an adult because I was still a child. I was 16, pregnant. I had my oldest at 17, and I was on my own. The only thing that I learned was how to cook and clean. But even that, at the beginning, I didn't understand what cleaning was on a natural basis, where you're supposed to clean little things every day, and you're supposed to pick up after yourself, and put your diapers in the garbage and take your garbage out. I was not taught those things, and I was not taught how to have a job. My job was to babysit, and I made good money babysitting, but that's all that I knew. I didn't know how to take my finances and multiply them, because I came from an environment, and I believe probably even to this day that they're still putting themselves into debt. So, like, I appreciate all the help that they did give me when I didn't ask for it but needed it, but I was never taught how to multiply my finances. So then I didn't know how to teach that to anyone else. So it was constantly struggling financially. And when I got pregnant at 16, instead of going, "Well, we're going to teach you how to work, we're going to put you on mother's allowance." And if you do not know what mother's allowance is, in Ontario, Canada, back in the day, when I was 16, they had 3 different options. So it was welfare, and then if you had a child, it was mother's allowance. After your child turned 3 months, you would be put on mother's allowance and disability. And I should have actually been put on disability right away because I was born ill and there was no way I was going to actually even be able to keep a job due to my illnesses and being mentally ill. And with that, my environment just put me on mother's allowance. And back then you would get a lot of money. And I was a teenager, pregnant, had no life skills. My sister and my sibling got to work. They got to do corn detasseling. They got to go work in a variety store. They got to do all that stuff. And I didn't. If I got a job, my mother was finding a way to make it so that I would lose my job by calling to see if I showed up to work. They would show up to my job while I was working, and then my boss would feel uncomfortable, or they would make my boss feel uncomfortable. And then uh, I would leave with them because they brought me something and I would have to go with them. But what they were trying to do was trying to get keys, extra keys to my apartment or my environment so that they could snoop around and they could see what was going on. And as an adult, that was none of their business. So there was only one time that I gave my dad my keys because they picked an apartment for me and it became infested with mice and bugs, like on the ants all over the kitchen floor all the time, everywhere. And it was a really bad environment and they could care less what environment they were putting me and my children in. And with that, I was such in a breakdown. I was in the mental breakdown that I allowed all of this to happen. I allowed all of their choices for my environment and my life. I allowed it. I kept allowing them to make those choices for me. So it was constant manipulation of my mind that then I got into drinking and the party life. And in the party life, it felt good to be wanted as who I was in that time frame and who I could be for them. And it was always like a back and forth, like a like a volleyball game of back and forth and hitting the ball hard and creating the excitement and the heart pumping experiences being in the breakdown because these people wanted me for me, so I thought. And and with that, like with that lifestyle and being in the breakdown, it was like when your kids constantly are repeating themselves and then you snap instantly, easily, because it's like you keep hearing the same thing over and over and over again. And then because you're in that mental breakdown, you break. You don't like stop for a minute, think about what you're about to do. And then it's just a instant reaction. And it's because you're holding on to that constant rotation of brokenness. And you have created this environment for yourself that you think that you are taking control because you have this space that's away from them, but you really don't have space away from the negativity because then you're the parent taking care of the children's needs and you're trying to find financial grounds, but you don't know what financial grounds are because nobody ever taught it to you. And you see the way that I'm talking, it like that can cause a trigger to a mental breakdown. And the littlest things like a penny dropping, a dime dropping, you're watching a TV show and the music comes on and you instantly receive a headache. It is because the breakdown is showing itself and your environment is so chaotic that you do not realize that you are crashing. And I always believe that when you get those headaches, it's literally God trying to tell you to stop, think, and rest and ask yourself, am I okay? Am I in the proper environment? Am I taking the proper stride that I need to provide for myself and my children. And if it is a no for all of those, then it is time for you to go and receive the help that you deserve, because you may not even realize that you may have a mental illness. You may be constantly being told that no, you don't need to be checked for a mental illness. We don't talk about that stuff. It's taboo in our family. It's hush hush. We have to stop that. We have to stop the hush. We cannot create a proper environment for ourselves if we let everybody else's voice overspeak our choices. And our choices are to be ours and not theirs. And we have to stand up for ourselves. It doesn't matter if they are going to make you feel uncomfortable, because they have been making you feel uncomfortable for years. If it's your family, if it's your parents, if it's your siblings that are constantly making you feel down about yourself, then you have to find a way to speak up for yourself. Even if they come back at you harder, you have to realize that one day you will not be in that environment, and one day you'll be able to take control for yourself. And today is that day for you to realize that you are probably sitting in a mental breakdown because of an environment that you did not choose to be in. And you are going to find a way out of it. You will. Trust me, because I was in that environment from the day that I was born. To be honest, the day that my mom probably got pregnant with me, to I was 33 years old. And when I told my family that they were dead to me and that I will no longer be a part of their punishment towards me, and they made me feel bad, but I don't have to walk with that anymore. And it took me 7 attempts of suicide or taking my own lives. For people who are sensitive to that word, understand it is a warning, it's a trigger. But I was in an environment on that 7th attempt of a bad relationship where he was an alcoholic, so was I, and we were abusing each other, which didn't bring a great environment for his children or my children. And then when I stepped away from that relationship, I was still in the breakdown. I was still creating the environment that my ancestors and my immediate family were going through for centuries. And I am the person who's breaking those boundaries because I am refusing to be an alcoholic. I am refusing to be their punching bag. I am refusing to listen to their words about me or towards me. I have stopped allowing people to bring me down to their level, because if you are in the breakdown, you are in the wrong environment for your level of energy, and it is not a reflection of you, it is a reflection of them. And what I have to say, this quote is, think back. Have you ever had a season where everything felt like too much, where you weren't yourself? You couldn't keep up with life's demands? That's the madness of the unknown. And it's more common than you might think. That is so true, isn't it? And now I want to talk about the second stage of the 3 M's, which is mental illness. And that is what you will be diagnosed with once you realize that you are in a mental breakdown. And you are diagnosed, like I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, OCD, anxiety disorder, 4 different depressions, sex addiction, and alcoholism. And those are all disorders. Like mental illness is a border, and you are either still in the borderline of a mental breakdown and you know that you need to go get help, you're about to go do that, and then the border is you will be diagnosed with things like depression, anxiety disorders, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, eating disorders, and addictions. There are ongoing challenges that affect your mood and your thoughts and your behavior. Unlike a breakdown, which may be temporary, a mental illness often needs long term support, whether that's therapy, medication, coaching, or a combination of treatments. And coaching, I found myself getting into coaching because I was learning everything on my own. I went after my seventh attempt and being diagnosed with bipolar disorder. I found myself wanting to educate myself on it. I didn't, I thought I was too smart for therapy, and any therapist that I went to was either trying to flirt with me, or even coaches that I went to go see, because it was a lot of male coaches and a lot of male therapist. For me, that's what I had. And the environment was still the same being created that I didn't ask for. And I was still at this time, still even sitting in the breakdown because I was allowing myself to be in environments that brought me down to levels that I was not supposed to be at. And I was drinking more because these therapists and these coaches were not working for me because, I mean, the truth is one of the coaches that I was seeing at the time after I got out of the hospital literally offered me money to have sex with him. And this seemed to had been recurring environment in my life of being sexually assaulted, and that's a trigger, I know, for some people, but I'm being raw here. I was sexually assaulted when I was 2 years old, and then from there I was then sexually assaulted till I was 14 years old. And even after that, I was sexually assaulted a few times after that. I was gang raped for many years by 5 different boys that were my cousins. And from there, and then it was single onset because my parents would put me in the room if we went to their house and my parents were drinking and we were staying the night there. All the other girls were put in a room together, and the boy who was raping me would ask if I could stay in their room, and then they would rape me. And then that was age 5 and up. And then when I would get into relationships, then I was raped. I was raped by the father of my children. He literally said if I wasn't going to give it freely, he was going to take it. If not, he was going to go sleep with one of my friends. And that was reoccurring situation as I got older. Was every relationship I was in, men were taking sex from me without my consent. I stayed single for 7 years because I learned that you should stay single for 7 years after a breakup with children involved. I did. I stayed single, but that doesn't mean that I didn't have multiple sex partners because I was a sex addict. So with that, I was just creating the environment, and it was, I will just have this piece of them, and it's the quote that is said is like, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. But instead, I was making it as wham, bam, thank you, sir. Now leave. And that was the environment that I was giving for myself, because then I felt like I had self control if I gave myself that environment where it was only sexual partners. It wasn't about a connection in the relationship. It was just about self pleasing. And that was when I was in the breakdown. Now I have an amazing husband and a healthy relationship, and realizing that sex is not the main action that you should have in your relationship. It should be one of the last things in your relationship is the sex, especially if you come from a negative environment. it should not be the first thing on your mind. And with a mental illness, it normally is, especially if you are bipolar, it is probably one of the highest things on your mind. And when you get into a relationship where it is not, where it's sex and then relationship, you find yourself constantly feeling like you're not good enough in the relationship. And that is the wrong brain capacity to have, because it is your partner is saying that you are worthy more than just sex. It is your partner reminding you that you are more worthy than having sexual relations. And when you get diagnosed with a mental illness, you do need to start on medication and then not get off of it. And I know that you get side effects like drowsiness and sleepiness, but it doesn't last. Now, I'm going to be fully transparent here and be honest. It does take up to 7 years for the medication to get where it is not affecting you where you are tired. And what my doctor had told me is that I could take my medication at bedtime. So then I do not get the effects of the medication during the day. Now, even though right from the beginning I had started taking them at bedtime, there are still some side effects that will show up. But you have to, instead of allowing your environment to tell you that that's not right, it is right, because what you are doing is making your environment, your self worth. You are saying, I am worthy of taking this medication and I am worthy of the side effects because I no longer want to live in the environment of a breakdown. I don't want to be an addict. I don't want to be an alcoholic. I don't want to be addicted to sex. I don't want to feel like I'm in an environment where everybody else is seen but myself, where you feel like you're not being seen. But once you start taking this medication, you'll start realizing, and you stay on it and at it, you will start realizing that you are who you are meant to be. And that the more you start taking your medication, if that's at nighttime, ask your doctor if you can start taking your medication at nighttime. If they say yes, start doing it as soon as possible. It will change everything for you. And you can take from that and you can start creating a positive, successful environment for yourself, because now you know what you've been diagnosed with. Now you know that you can educate yourself on whatever it is that you've been diagnosed with. And then you can start a successful career in knowing that you have an illness that has taken part of trauma reaction, and you can take that and you can take trauma and create it into a positive environment for yourself, and then you create it for your children, your future children, or your future self. Unlike a breakdown, which may be temporary, mental illness often needs long-term support, and that is true. I highly recommend that you hire a coach to do that, because you can find a coach and then they will be there for you and your environment. If you are looking for a coach, I am taking on clients and I am happy to help you get on the proper tracks that you deserve. And here's the truth. Mental illness doesn't mean weakness. It has never meant weakness. It doesn't mean failure, because you are not a failure. You are here for a reason. God brought you here so that you can change other people's perspectives on a mental illness, or you will get to the point where you are diagnosed with a mental illness because you have been sitting in a breakdown for way too long. And with that, it doesn't mean failure. It means your brain, just like any other part of your body, needs care, attention, and sometimes professional help. If you're struggling with ongoing symptoms that make it hard to function, like communication, sadness, irritable thoughts, panic attacks, or behaviors you can't control, you are not alone and there is help out there for you. Again, please contact me by DMing me on social media platforms under Healing Her Hustle, and I will let you know all the information to help you to book a free consultation with me to see if I am a match to help you to see where you are in the 3 M's. Stage 3, mental health, to me, is an environment that you go to get diagnosed with a mental illness or to find out if you are in a mental breakdown. Does not always mean that you have a mental illness when you are in the breakdown, but it is very common. Mental health is not just the ability of an illness. It is your overall state of well-being, how you cope with stress, how you show up in your relationship, how you function at work, and how you collaborate with your community. Your mental health is functional. It shifts depending on your stress levels, your lifestyle, your physical health, and yes, your trauma is a separation. Some days we're thriving, other days we're surviving. Amen to that. That is so true. Especially also, I want you to know that if you do have a mental illness, it is okay to have great, great days and days where you just want to go to the washroom and go back to your bed. It is okay to have those days. But if you are having those days and you have somebody that is telling you that it is not right, that you are always in bed or you cry easily, or that it frustrates them because you're doing all the above, that is not your person. It is not. Or your village or your community or your environment. It is not the right environment for you. Because if they know that you have a mental illness, they should automatically be supportive of you when you have great days and when you have bad days. Because they should be your caregiver when you are surviving, and they should be your cheerleader when you're thriving. And they should be like, I'm so proud of you today for getting up and doing this, and thank you. And they should be thanking you so that you can stay in a thriving, functioning mindset instead of I'm walking on eggshells and trying to survive this relationship. You should never have to feel like you are surviving in a relationship. You should be able to speak up for yourself, even in an uncomfortable environment, no matter what. You are the person who eats words. And I say that like that because this is how I explain it to my clients. You are the only one in the room eating the words of everything coming out, including what's coming out of your mouth. And you hold on to that, and you will hold on to it for the rest of your life. So you have to let them know. Thanks so much for treating me that way. Now I have to live with that for the rest of my life, where you don't. You just get to walk away from this situation and go on with your day, where I have to stay up all night thinking about what you said to me and overthinking how I have to survive it because you chose your words, and your words I'm eating. And that is not okay. And I will no longer allow you to treat me this way, because it is my turn to thrive in this life. And if you cannot control the way that you speak to me, then I can control the outcome, and I will be leaving. That is something that you need to speak up and say for yourself. You also have to say what you are feeling at the time, right away, even if it creates arguments, even if it creates negativity in the room, can remove yourself from it by speaking up for yourself because you have been put in the trauma for way too long that now you are at the mental health part of your life where it is time for you to demand others to treat you the way that you know deep down you deserve to be treated. And if you cannot do that, you have to find someone who will help you to speak up for yourself in any environment, including work, relationships, and other experiences that you have had to put yourself into, including if you have, say, teenage children or adult children, you have to speak up for yourself, including even if that makes you lose the relationship with your children. It is because this quote is God removes you from environments and conversations that you are no part of. He will remove you right away from those conversations that you have never heard. And that is so powerful to me. I say it to myself every day because as you know, if you've been following along, I do unfortunately do not have a relationship with my two sons. I have a grandchild that does not know me, and that even though it does hurt and it hurts a lot, I have to realize that I can no longer be abused from their father that brings it into my environment through my children. I can no longer live that way with that heartache because I no longer deserve an environment like that, and I never deserved it in the first place. I am no longer a survivor. I am thriving in life with business and success and love and caring for myself. When the demand placed on us, whether from work, relationships, or our own expression, coping abilities, our mental health suffers. That's when we need to pause, reset, and lean into tools, people, and find that support for yourself because you deserve better than what the people are giving you around you. So, my last little bit here is what I have for you to repeat as much as you need to. A mental breakdown, the crash point where everything feels overwhelming. Mental illness, the ongoing condition that needs proper care and support. Mental health, the everyday well-being that we all need to nurture, just like physical health. Remember, taking care of your mental health is not a luxury, it's a necessity. I will say that again. Remember, taking care of your mental health is not a luxury, it's a necessity. You can't hustle, grow, or heal if you're running on empty. You can't hustle, grow, or heal if you're running on empty. If you're listening right now and you feel like you're on the edge of a breakdown, or if you're living with a mental illness, please know this. You don't have to go through it alone. Reach out, talk to someone, seek professional help if you need it. Healing starts with one step towards a better you, better, healthier life, and a better relationship, not only with yourself, but with your partner and with your children when you choose yourself first. Thank you for tuning in today, episode of Healing Her Hustle. If this resides with you, share it with a friend who might need to hear it. And if you want more conversations around mental wellness, business, and personal growth, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Until next time, take care of your hustle, but most importantly, take care of yourself. Next week, we'll dive into women empowerment and self-love that completely changed the way I show up in life and business. I promise you won't want to miss it. Until then, remember, success isn't just about the hustle, it's about healing, alignment, and creating something truly yours. I'll see you in the next episode. And if you have a story you want others to hear, about, please DM me on Instagram or any of my other social media platforms under Healing Her Hustle. And I hope you have a beautiful, blessed day, sending you off with love and light.